Ethan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. Our
And
group had an extension, right?
what's up?
Our group had an extension, right? Since our three of our group members, including me, were gone.
Yep. I put you guys. Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. Hello, Amaya. Hello, Jack. John.
Hello.
Very good to see you. Anybody going to the game tonight? Yes. Hands. Okay, good. My daughter will be there. Keep an eye on her. I decided to take a little brain break before class and try to get one side of a Rubik's Cube. I'm one square off, and what's really frustrating is that the square I need is just right on the other side of where I
Solve
need.
the beginning wrong, you're all messed up.
You what?
Solve the beginning wrong, you're all messed up.
I know. Are you someone who can like do this in 13 seconds?
No, I figured it out when I was like 5 for a birthday present, and I realized it's just like a memorization, so I wasn't that interested in it.
Okay, did everybody else check that flex that Ethan just gave us?
No, it's not. It's like
at 5 years old, he was smarter than Mr. Hodson.
No, it's just you watch a YouTube video and you figure it out. It's like
you lying.
It's like you just watch a video when you.
It's a pattern. You just need to know the pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm trying to do it without the YouTube video, Ethan. I'm trying to do it with this raw horsepower up here.
You're not gonna get more than 2 sides.
Okay, the gauntlet has been thrown.
I mean, I had to try it before I was allowed to look it up.
It's getting shady on the Zoom already. Presentations haven't even started yet.
You're definitely not getting more than 2 sides. If you get 2 sides, I'll be impressed. Actually.
All right. Well, I'm living to impress Ethan now. That's my goal. That is my goal. Ale, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing really well. You ready for a geography quiz?
In geography quiz?
Yeah, you got a map of the U.S. behind you. So I'm going to name a place and see if you can put your finger where it is on the map. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Great Salt Lake.
Like there?
Okay, that's pretty good. All right, it's going to get harder as we go, though. I'm starting easy. Next, let's see. Let's go with the Bering Sea.
Oh, but that's like, oh, in the US, up there.
Very good. Okay. Yes, and between the United States and Russia, between Alaska and Russia. Okay, very good. All right, let's see.
I'm in my brother's room, so this is his like world map, I guess.
That's cool. Let's try the country I lived in when I was in Peace Corps, Burkina Faso.
Like this area?
It is that area. Very good. All right, that's pretty good. Okay. Does anybody think they can stump Ala? Raise your hand if you think you can give her a place. All right, Elias, go for it.
Yeah. Maybe you're Baltic Sea.
With the Baltic Sea.
Oh, took too much time. Oh.
What?
You're done.
It's like over here.
She can't reach it.
All right, that's pretty good. All right, you did well. Good job.
That's true, Ethan.
You would have done well in my geography and history of the world class.
Thank you.
Well done. Oh, Lee, that's so sad that your friend lacked in that geographic knowledge. Hopefully you set him or her straight. Great, it's good to see so many of you back. We have almost everybody with us right now. We're maybe just missing a few folks that'll straggle in here in the next minute or so. I know tonight's a big night with homecoming. I asked the first few folks that came in, but show of hands if you're planning on going to the game. All right, it looks like a pretty good crowd. All right, maybe about half of us. Okay, that's great. I hope you enjoy it. The weather looks like it's going to be fantastic. I tried to talk my son into going, and he was kind of lame. He didn't want to, which I was surprised about. So I will not be there, but I'll be dropping my daughter off and her friend. They'll be hanging out with the freshmen though, so I doubt you'll cross paths. Okay, cool. Today, our plan is to try and see 3, hopefully maybe 4 of the presentations. But again, we'll just kind of see how the timing works out and how, each discussion unfolds. You should be aiming for around 8 or 9 minutes for your presentation. But as I mentioned, I'm not gonna cut you off mid-sentence once you hit 9 minutes. So if you need a, an extra 30 seconds or so to wrap up your point that you're making, that's certainly fine. If you want to have your phone out to have a timer on it, you're certainly obviously more than welcome to do that. You may have a clock in your room as well that you can use to kind of pace yourselves. I think the way this is going to work best is I've got everybody's presentations kind of up on my screen, and I'll share my screen and start your presentation. And then you guys can just tell me as you're talking when you'd like me to go to the next slide. I know that might not be the smoothest presentation format, but I think it's probably the best we can do right now. All right, cool. Elias, yeah, what's up?
What if we, for the changing slide, what if you just raise, like, one person in our group just raises the hand in the chat thing?
Yeah.
Easy?
To pass to the next slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can try that as well. We can see if that works. That might be beyond Mr. Hodson's technological abilities to monitor that and take notes on your presentation, but we can give it a shot.
Yeah.
I appreciate the suggestion though. In Canvas, you should see a new assignment in there that's labeled something like Art Framework Presentation Reviews. Like most teachers, I would like you to be actively engaged as you view the other team's presentations. Active engagement while they're presenting can just be listening and thinking critically about what is being presented. And then I'll give you a few minutes, maybe 3-4 minutes after each presentation to jot down a few things about how that team did. And what I'd like you to do is list 2 or 3, but really there's no limit, 2 or 3 things that you thought the team did well. These could be things like, aesthetically appealing slides, confident, public speaking, interesting questions that they asked and or answered, I don't know, whatever you thought stood out from the presentation. Then I'm also going to ask you to think about one thing you think they could have improved upon. It's almost impossible to give a presentation that's perfect. So maybe we'll see one today. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but try to think of something that you could give the team in terms of advice on how to have improved. I will be sharing some of this feedback with the team. So again, just be aware of that. That you'll be getting some feedback from your peers, and your feedback will be shared with your peers as well. Was everybody able to get that document?
Mr. Hodson?
Yeah. Is that Caden?
I had an issue with it. It said I needed to request access, but I was logged into my MSCWT account.
Okay, I thought I made the link so that everybody could get it regardless of access. Did anybody else run into that issue, or do you all have it? Thumbs up if you got it. Okay, cool, Kate. I will try sharing it just absolutely directly with you.
All right.
Oh, it's not going to let me minimize Zoom because I'm recording. All right, let's try this. All right, I'm sharing it directly with your township account, Caden. We'll see if that works.
All right, thank you.
If it doesn't work, Caden, it's not anything super fancy. It's just a Google Doc where you're just going to write down 3 positives and 2 or 3 positives and something they could improve upon. So it doesn't have to be on that specific piece of paper. Okay, I used a random number generator to decide the order in which the teams would go. And our first team that's going to be up is Team Weiwei with, that's Mr. Hodson's terrible handwriting. The first team that's going to be going first is Borges. So that would be Jack, Andrew, Nikhil, and Tristan. And I've got yours ready to go. I think it downloaded as a PowerPoint. It's not that one though. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, let's just reopen it from Canvas because it's being temperamental. Well, I thought I had them all open and ready to go. Apparently I didn't. And of course, it's the first one too.
Is the order we're going in on the Google Doc as well?
It is, yeah. Very intuitive. Whoever that was, I can't see the screen right now. Oh. All right, here we go. Modules and all right, Team Borges, here you go. Hey, there we go. All right, now I just gotta figure out where to share my screen. There it is. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. We're good to go now. All right, Jack, Andrew, Tristan, is there anything I can do for you guys before you get started?
There's a few like audio clips that I'll actually have you play, but other than that, I think that it should be good.
Excellent, thanks, Jack. In that case, the floor is yours.
All right, so go to the next slide. So the first question we talked about was, why are the arts important? If we go to the next one again, sorry. But yeah, so on the left here is, so the main thing that we talked about when we decided what makes the arts important was that it was a way that people would express themselves, whether it's like socially or politically, but people can express themselves through art and have kind of an impact with that art. So on the left, you see it's a mural of George Floyd, who I'm sure many of you know, but it represents the Black Lives Matter movement and is a way that someone, whoever drew this, would express their ideals and show, because all the names in the background of the other victims of police brutality, that so it's a way that people or that person was able to express their thoughts on the matter through art, which is one reason why we thought it was very important. Another one through music actually is, so the movie Selma has a song written by, I think, John Legend and and Common, that's the name. But I think I have it, I don't know if it's saved where I had it playing at the same time, but if you'll play it, I think it should be at the right spot.
Let's give it a try. Oh,
Okay. That's fine. Basically, it had lyrics though that were going to that got his message across of what he wanted to talk about in the movie. I found quotes from him that talked about why he wrote what he wrote, and basically it was just a way that he thought he was giving a voice to the people, from connecting from 1964 to what was happening in 2014 and 15 at the time. So he was able to connect those by taking messages from people he had spoken to about matters of the time and in the past, and he used that in lyrics for the songs to get his message across. So that was one thing we thought was very, very important, and how the arts impacted the world. So if you go to the next one.
yeah.
We also said that art was able to kind of inspire people and still get someone's message across. So it's, I guess, maybe a propaganda-ish poster of the "I want you" for the US Army is a way to recruit people to fight in the war. And underneath that is another audio clip of the, I assume you won't be able to play it still, but the French national anthem, which was heavily used during the French Revolution as kind of a war anthem, and ways for people to, people sang the songs during that time, or during the wartime, and it kind of inspired people and brought them closer together as a nation. So that was another way that art was used back then, was very, very important, as well as the Rosie the Riveter, "We Can Do It," which is a political message behind, and is kind of a staple of women empowering, or the women's rights movement.
You want me to give it a shot?
You can if you'd like. I don't know if it'll play though. Yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't.
All good. It's all good. We're
All
learning.
right. And yeah, we'll go to the next one. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question we tackled was, what are some of the fundamental assumptions in the arts and how are these assumptions justified, or are they? Can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
So when you hear the word art, most people think of paintings like landscapes or traditional depictions of objects or people. And this assumption is made due to the limit of knowledge of different types of art. And next slide. So I can see the reasoning behind this assumption, but it's not justified in my view, because a person that has this view would most likely not have been exposed to many pieces of art. And the more education and experiences with different types of art a person has, the more their definition of art expands. Usually, like when you're in middle school, you're not drawing abstract pieces with meaning behind it, but you're fine-tuning your art skills rather than diving deep into thought. And basically, how people view art is in the eye of the beholder. So to everybody, you take away a different aspect or conclude a separate thing from looking at the same piece of art. Can you go next slide?
Real quick, Andrew, what was the assumption that you were discussing? I think I missed it.
That people think of art as only paintings, as landscapes or objects of people, or objects or people. So they don't think of art in a bigger perspective. So in modern day, these pieces have become more abstract, and basically the journey matters as much as the final product. And like this blank canvas sold for millions of dollars, not because it's a blank canvas, but because the thought behind it. And now there's also interactive pieces of art that keep the viewer more engaged. And there's on the top left light form, where you basically just touch the piece and it moves depending on how you touch it. And then in the bottom right and top right, this piece actually came to Indianapolis at the Indianapolis Art Museum, and it is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Yayoi Kusama's Infinity Rooms, where you basically are in a room full of mirrors, and it completely immerses the viewer. Can you go to the next slide?
Absolutely.
And in the Renaissance, these pieces of art would never occur or even be thought of, because during this time, art was judged on how well you can master your craft. And some examples would be the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper of Pisa. And basically in modern day, there are more conceptual parts to an art piece rather than solely based on skill. Next slide.
All right, so the next question that we decided to discuss was how are conclusions, outcomes, or finished products reached in arts? You can go to the next slide. So the first topic we kind of touched on in our discussion was the question, is art really ever finished? Kind of seen in that quote is, art is never finished, only abandoned, which was said by Leonardo da Vinci. We talked about in our group that we believe a person's opinion kind of determines whether art is finished or not. And so we took, for example, Mona Lisa. You know, during the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci, he probably believed that after he finished it, it was a work of art, and he would say that it was a completed piece of art. But somebody today with their own opinion could be like, oh, there's critiques, there's areas that he could fix, and it's not a finished product or a work of art. The next thing we also started to talk about were the boundaries of art, and especially in today's art is getting more abstract. We believe that as art gets more abstract, there are less boundaries that are placed on it. For example, Jack, I took this away from our discussion. Jack talked about a banana taped to a canvas. And, back then, like when art was, like Andrew said, more related to like objects or a person, that wouldn't have been considered art. It probably would have been ridiculed, but, as today, it can be considered anything, and also probably can be considered a finished product. Uh, yeah, and I said like today we can also consider anything art. And kind of some of the later points we touched on were the different interpretations of art. We said that art can be viewed in different and like multiple ways. And for example, like I have these two videos up here. These are two like different versions of the beginning of Swan Lake. I don't know if you can play them or not. You might have to request edit access.
I'll give it a try. Sample the other one.
That's fine. And then the second one.
A modern compact crossover that's ready for life's daily adventures. It's the dynamic 2020.
All right, that's good. And so you kind of see like the different interpretations there for like Swan Lake. You kind of see in the first video, the ballet dancers are dressed in kind of really dark clothing, and I don't know if you could see there's one guy with a mohawk. You know, there's like different interpretations of the look, and kind of the music as well. And then in the second, it looks like more traditional, you know, ballet setup, with some ballet dancers in kind of white clothing. And you know, that was, you know, art can be interpreted in many different ways, and that's just one example of them. But overall, I think that this shows that there's a lot of differences between the two. Yeah. Next slide.
All right, this is my question that I presented, what we discussed. Based on the past, what do we predict about for the future of the progress of the arts? Next slide. So what we discussed is, it kind of drew heavily from other questions as well. It maybe made us think about, like, you know, how art is becoming more like abstract. There are new ways of drawing and such. Like in the Renaissance, for example, it focused mostly on on kind of like limited aspects. And I think partially it is because the material conditions of the time. I think a lot of people didn't have access to the tools of art, so I don't think there were many variations that were created during that time. But I think as more people got access to, you know, drawing or music making, as it allowed for more abstract pieces that you see now, like Jack said about the banana stuck on just like a piece of canvas as art. It would be completely unthinkable, I think, would be in the 1700s. But now, as you know, time progressed, there was art, I think, became less a focus on the finished product, but more on the creator's perspective, like what do they want to portray and such as that. So I think it will become these more abstract forms and different ways of drawing would continue to develop and thrive.
Looks like that's the end.
Yep.
Correct. Awesome. Thank you, Team Borges. I greatly appreciate that. Excellent. I'll give everyone a minute or two, a couple minutes to jot down some thoughts on Team Borges's performance, some things that you thought they did well, a thing that you think they may have been able to improve upon. All right. Okay, let's see. Up next, we are going to have Team Kuti, I believe. And that is populated by our friends Caden, Claire, Price, Charlotte, and Halsey. And I think, again, I have yours up and ready to go here. Oh, there it was. I knew I had it ready to go. Which one? Oh, it's down here. There we go. All right, are you guys ready to go? Is there anything you need from me to get started? Or
Nope, I think we're good.
all right, fantastic. In that case, the floor and or Zoom is all yours.
So in my group, we have Caden, Claire, me, Price, and Charlotte. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So what are the arts? The arts are creations that are a form of expression and can evoke feelings. Behind art, there's a lot of creativity and there's an idea behind it. And it's like putting imagination into reality. Arts is where inspiration drives people to become creative. It's an outlet to express oneself, and it also is a way to relieve stress. And in each artwork, there's uniqueness. So there are two types of arts that we defined here, which are the performance arts and visual arts. In visual arts, there's 3D and 2D. So three-dimensional, where it's something that is a form rather than a shape, and two-dimensional is more of a shape. And it's usually seen like in painting or drawing. And so these creations can range from drawings, paintings, clothing, photography, origami, sculptures, pottery, architecture, jewelry, calligraphy, and literature. And for example, I have David by Michelangelo, which is a marble sculpture. And then even like clothing and magazines are like an artwork. And yeah.
Next one.
Price.
Yeah. All right. So we've already talked about visual arts, right? So we will move on to the performance art, which is on the left. This is anywhere where like effort is put in when you are performing and you're showing your creativity and imagination when you're performing, which the basics can be music, poem writing, singing, dancing, but more are like, you can go deeper into it with like sports. There's soccer. If you're using your imagination, like you see professionals play and you put it to yourself, you put the creativity and you make your own style of like how you play. And then there's another one, magic, which this is where you perform your magic with magic tricks, and you can put your own imagination into it and make what seems that can't be real come true. You can also talk about video games like esports, or your own style of playing, like just you can play competitively. And then we can also talk about speech, which speech is more verbal, but like more like speech is you're performing, you're putting out art like it's singing, but it's more verbal and straightforward. And then there's also theater, which is another more basic one, which can lead on to other places like voice acting and acting in a movie. And yeah, so that's also where visual arts and performing arts can combine. As you can see in dance, you can see that there's visual arts connected to the performing arts, where the woman is wearing like a very vibrant dress, and then the soccer ball has a visual art to it. The cards have a visual art to it. The controllers have a visual like 3D art to it. Well, and that's it.
Cool. Next slide.
Yep.
Yes, please.
Okay. So how does work in the arts proceed? just muted myself. Okay. So one way that we interpret movements, that we interpret the progression of art is through interpreting art movements. Even though they're not linear or not exactly defined, art movements can really help us understand the progression of art depending on changes in culture over time. An important aspect that impacts art movements is changes in ideas of a culture. An example of this is the development of the Harlem Renaissance, which was a celebration of Black culture in Harlem, especially, but in other areas of the African diaspora as well, which resulted from a change towards more celebration of Black cultural identity. Another example of this change in ideas leading to a change in art is the development of minimalism, which was a shift away from consumerism and high quantities and bright colors, which were very popular in the mid 20th century, towards very simple styles as people's tastes change. Religion also heavily impacts the development of the arts, and this is seen in one way in morality plays in 15th and 16th century Europe. They were a transition period from heavily religious-based art of the Middle Ages in Europe towards more secular art following the Renaissance, in which virtues were portrayed as people to bring moral ideas to others. This was also an example of how art could be used for more political purposes to control an audience. Also, cultural diffusion and interactions between different cultures often create new art movements. This has been seen fairly recently with the development of K-pop at the end of the 20th century due to heavy American influence, especially influence of American hip hop and pop in Korea. The development of technology is also a heavy influence on the progression of different art movements. We discussed a lot about the changes in complexity of art over time, from cave paintings to computer animation. On an individual level or on a smaller level, the physical creation process of art usually comes from inspiration into more planning and defining of ideas and experimentation towards a final product, which is a very similar process to the development of other items such as medicine or practicing for sports or any other endeavor that people go through, which is why the definition of arts can be very blurred, because its development is so similar to the development of other processes for humanity. Okay, next slide.
Excuse me, can we actually go back a slide? I believe we may have accidentally skipped over mine. It's right after the first colorful slide.
Slide
Right
3.
after this one.
Is that one?
Yes. All
Okay.
right. Sorry about that.
All good.
Okay, so another question that we discussed was, how does the use of language enhance or inhibit the study of art? So when we first looked into the question, we heard language and we thought writing. So we came to think about these art forms. We have literature, poetry, songwriting, and the writing aspect of scripted performances. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, we looked at the forms of art which could possibly exist without the presence of language at all. From here, we got arts that incorporate purely sound and movement, such as lyricless music and dancing. You can see literature as an image in the top left and performance art or performing music in the top right. And so including all these art forms that I've just mentioned, in our further discussions within this question, we found that any type of art can be enhanced or inhibited by language, because all forms of art experience response or feedback from the viewers who are able to draw their own conclusions. So when we looked into how language might enhance or inhibit the arts, our discussions focused on the language as present within the responses to art. We concluded that the use of language as explanations for specific examples of art could help people understand the art. We viewed this as a way that language could enhance the arts because we agreed that in certain situations, a basis of language is needed as an understanding, and it's needed for pieces of art so the viewer can develop a coherent opinion of the art in which they are viewing. And this idea of explaining art can also go the other way as a foundation in the way in which language can inhibit the arts. We found that in our discussions that explanations of art can be harmful in the sense that they prevent the viewer from drawing their own conclusions and forming their own opinion on what they believe is being portrayed. This can prove detrimental to certain viewers of, say, abstract art, as I've depicted in the center image there, because some arts are up to the interpretation of the individual viewer, and perhaps hearing an explanation could corrupt what that viewer gathers from that piece of art. So we came to the general conclusion that language position in either enhancing or inhibiting the arts is widely situational, and we found it important to acknowledge that language has the capability of achieving both enhancing and inhibiting the arts. So if you can move on to the final slide, please.
This one's mine. Give me a second. All right. So the main prediction that our group came up with for the future progress of the arts was a wider expansion of ways to create art in more mediums that will come into existence or be developed over time. New technology leads to new possibilities in art, like, for example, 3D modeling, which would have been unthinkable decades ago, animation, which has developed wildly over the century-ish that it's been around, movies, which went from black and white to grainy to high-resolution 3D movie theater Marvel Endgame festivals, and 3D modeling, where you use software to create virtual sculptures that are intangible but can be incredibly detailed. Most of those would have been completely unthinkable a couple hundred years ago. And digital and virtual art has a lot of possibilities that we don't really know how far they can go, and it's been developing a lot over time. Like, again, centuries ago, we would have had no idea that movies would have been art existing or as popular as they are now. We also predict easier methods of publication for art, like social media and widespread commercialization of media in general. Think of a small artist posting their creations on Instagram and becoming famous through the algorithm and word of mouth and the general connectedness of our society. And of course, there's a lot of media conglomerates these days, like Disney, who have huge stock based off of their art, their roots in art. And I don't know if we're getting close to time. There's also more incorporation of past arts as technology allows us to look further into what used to be in the past and was forgotten. If you look at the middle GIF on my slide, this is from Loving Vincent, which is a full hour-and-a-half long movie animated with hand-painted oil paints dedicated to Da Vinci. Not Da Vinci, God, Vincent, it's called Vincent van Gogh. It's called Loving Vincent. I'm sorry. And on the left, there's Cuphead, which is a fully animated video game, as you can see by Jacksepticeye in the upper right corner of the left one. And on the furthest right, there is the outro for Mob Psycho, a Japanese anime, which was, again, also hand-painted and animated using oil paints on, like, hot glass. There's an interview with the creator. In the lower right image, that ties into the new technology and new possibilities as well, because that is Hatsune Miku at a concert, and she is a digitally constructed program that is a hologram that is, like, projected onto glass so she can have live concerts with people, and that is very cyberpunk. And for the oil painting, that is us using older forms of art and modern animation, something that's an interesting blend of the old and the new. Yeah.
Great, thank you, team. So that looks like that might be the end. Got some citations there. Thank you very much. Not necessary, but I appreciate it. Was that the end of your presentation? Yes. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay, that's great. I'll give you a minute or two to jot down your thoughts about what this team did well, what they could have improved upon.
Mr. Hodson.
Yeah.
So I'm in Team Ellington. I think we're supposed to go next, but Maya, who's in our group, has been texting me saying that she's been getting kicked out like 2 or 3 times now. I was wondering if it's okay if we went on Monday or if you would like to just try to knock it out without her.
It's a great question. I have been letting her in repeatedly. I know I've seen that she's been struggling. Let's try letting her in again, and we'll give it a shot, and we'll go from there. But I have noticed that she's been getting bounced. Doesn't look like she's in, is she? All right. Let's see. Okay, well, I think we'll pause here on presentations because we're gonna come up pretty closely against the end of the school day if we try to get another team in. So yeah, good stuff from our first 2 teams. It's always hard to go first, right? And so we got to give them mad props and respect for powering through that. One of the things that both of the first teams did that teams that you guys are going later, you might be able to work on a little bit is the first 2 teams both ran a little bit long. Now that wasn't a huge deal. I didn't cut them off. It's okay. I know you're trying to summarize like a couple days worth of conversations in like 8-9 minutes. But with a little rehearsal, you know, you might be able to tighten up a little bit on the content. Again, it's not something that's a major big deal, but just in terms of getting through the presentations relatively quickly, see if you can tighten up on that a little bit. But overall, great stuff. Great stuff. I learned some new things and I took lots and lots of notes. So I'm ready to give you guys some evaluations eventually. I'll stick around if any of the teams that went want to talk to me about their presentation, if any of the teams that have yet to go want to ask me about anything that they could do to prepare for next week, I'll be happy to stick around. But, oh, and Ethan, it looks like you got your hand raised. Did you want to ask a question real quick, buddy?
Yeah, I was just wondering, are these grades going to be individual or group-based?
It's a great question. The grades will be group-based unless for some reason you want to talk to me individually about that. Okay. But generally these grades are going to be good grades. Okay. They might not be perfect grades, but they're generally going to be good grades. Okay. Elias, yeah, what do you want to ask?
Yeah, so it wasn't in a rubric, but I'm asking just to be sure. Do we need to have sources? And if we do we want, no, we
No,
don't need to.
not necessary for this one. I mean, if you want to, like Team Kuti did,
Sure.
that's great, but it's not a requirement.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Because again, most of what you're talking about is what you guys discussed in your conversation. So again, this isn't like it's not intended like a research project where you're pulling information from a bunch of third-party sources. Cool. All right, well, I want to say oh wait, Halsley's got a quick question as well.
Is this part of the 9 weeks assessment or is there a separate thing?
No, no, this is not part of the 9 weeks assessment. So there won't be a separate thing. You guys are all right.
Oh, okay.
Good question. Good question. Cool. Everybody else good? Everybody else good? Okay, awesome. Okay, well, again, sorry we didn't get to our third presentation today, but we'll get some next week. And I love you very much. Have an awesome weekend. Feel free to stick around if you want to talk or have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Hey, Mr. Hodson.
Yeah, Caden.
Yeah, I just want to say sorry about that little mix up there. I didn't know how we got out of order with the slides.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay. It's, you don't have control over the presentation. So we're going to be very forgiving of technical issues like that. It's all right. Your content was awesome though. You guys had a lot of interesting things to say. There were several parts. I love what Halsey said about turning imagination into reality. I thought that was a really cool perspective. I like that that Price brought up the dichotomy between, or you guys all, like the presentation brought up the dichotomy between performing arts and the visual arts. And I wrote in my notes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope that they question that assumption of that dichotomy. And sure enough, you guys did, which was awesome. I love when Charlotte took it to the easier production within the arts and how, because like at first, Charlotte, you were talking about how new technology is going to equal new kinds of art, which is true. But I was like, okay, that's kind of obvious. But then you took it to the next level when you talked about how this new technology is going to make it, you didn't use these words, but essentially it's going to democratize the art making process, which is something I've thought a lot about. So that was really cool. So yeah, there was a lot of good stuff in there. You guys did well.
All right. Appreciate that. Have a good weekend, Mr. Hodson.
So this, I'm not trying to like be nitpicky, but I know that the creating knowledge questions, I got a 6 out of 7, and then I reached out to you about like redoing it, and I did. So I was but I did it in the comments, so I was just making sure you saw that.
I did not see that, so thank you. I'll put a note in my planner to take a look at it on Monday. I don't get notifications. I don't know if I can set up Canvas differently so that if it's like a preference thing, but I don't get notifications when you guys put comments. I only get notifications if you like resubmit the assignment. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I was just letting you know because I know the 9 weeks is coming to an end. So
I'll put it in my agenda book right now and I'll take a look at it by Monday.
okay, thank you so much. Have a good
You're welcome.
weekend.
Have a good one.
I'm just curious if my GIFs played.
They did. You
Oh,
could,
sweet. I was worried they didn't, so it would have just been a single frame of the animation.
did you guys not see my screen?
We did, but I was looking at my notes.
Oh, okay, good. Because I was like, oh my gosh, that would have been so unfortunate if like we went through all those presentations and nobody could see what we were talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they played great. They were beautiful, especially the what was it? Forgetting Vincent.
Loving Vincent.
Loving Vincent. That was really cool.
It's supposed to be about like his murder and someone kind of investigating what happened.